All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to City Talk with Slim. Of course, I'm Slim, and we have a special guest. We've been featuring candidates and city officials here on City Talk with Slim. We have a special guest, but she is no stranger to these platforms that I've been involved with over the years. Of course, no Coffee Talk and one-on-one with Slim and all that kind of stuff. So we really appreciate her coming back again to be with us to talk about her campaign. And I know y'all are getting down on the jazz this morning, but we're going to stop so we can talk. But anyway, a little bit of jazz so we can start us off this morning. Okay. All right. Okay. And good morning, Lisa. How you doing? Of course, my guest is Miss Lisa Lucas Burke. And I consider her a friend, but this is one of those times where this is the show. So we just want to have a conversation with her about her campaign, so you can know what's going on with her. But Lisa, I want to start with. I want you to give your platform, but I want to start with saying, let people know that don't know you were on city council before, and you decided to run for mayor and did well, but wasn't successful, and had to step away and then come back. I want to ask you about that policy. That hasn't always been policy. I think at some point, maybe before the policy changed about if you have time left on your tenure, on council, you can run for mayor, and if you're not successful, you still fill out that time you have left, and that was changed, I think, right before Elizabeth Simmons did it, because she ran for. I think she was vice mayor as well and ran for
Correct.
mayor, and then had more time on her term, but had to step down because of the policy had changed.
Right.
Um, do you feel like that policy is still a good policy to have? I think the school board, if I'm not mistaken, still has that policy where you can run for city council, and if you're not successful, you're still a member of the school board. If I'm
Right.
not
And
mistaken, I
and
don't
that
think they
is
have.
that and that is the
Mhm.
case. So it was changed and then it was changed back.
Right.
So
I know
so
it.
the current policy is if you run for mayor or any other position for that matter of fact, if you have remaining time on the council, you can return to your seat. Unfortunately, at the time that I ran in 2024, that was the end of my city council term. So I was
Right.
seeking a new position as mayor. And as you said, it was an unsuccessful bid, but it was a great bid. Only lost by 3,000 votes, and the third person that was put in the race won by 3,500 votes. So
Oh,
it was
okay.
a very close race,
Very
and
close
I feel
race.
good about it. I didn't lose any sleep, didn't cry about it, but I did eat a ton of sugar daddies to soothe my discomfort with it, but
Yeah,
it gave me
your
time to
comfort food
rest.
though is
Yes, the
there.
little comfort foods was my sweet foods, and
Yeah.
I had time to rest and reflect on what was going on in my city, and make a determination if I wanted to go back in. And my heart told me this year that I want to be back in. I want to be a part of the build out that's occurring right here in our city.
Yes, and pardon me, I had forgotten that you were at the end of your term. I was thinking you still had
Two
time.
years,
Yeah, two
yes.
years left, and but anyway, that question still stands. Is that
Yeah,
something that
absolutely.
you think
Absolutely.
still should be in place? And
I
you
think
know,
it should be in place that if a candidate has 2 years on their term, if they run for a higher position mayor, that they should be able to return to their seat, because that's the same thing that happened with other candidates who did that in years past as well. So it had changed so that you couldn't complete your time, and then it was changed back to where you could. But for me, I'm the honorable person. I believe that you should complete your full 4 years of any term that you were elected to, and then run for higher office or another position if that's your desire. And that was the case with me. I've always run previously in the presidential elections, and this will be my first time running in the midterm elections. And I think I will fare well in this cycle.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, even though I made the mistake in thinking that you had time left.
Oh,
But
no, it's
you
okay.
know,
Yeah,
you made a very good point, I think, and I feel that way too. People, uh, elected officials should fill out their time before they
correct.
decide to run. But you know, circumstances can change. But
Yeah,
anyway, why don't you give us talk about your platform and one thing about things happen for a reason. And, yeah, I
they
believe
do.
all things happen for a reason. And you had that little break, and I know during that break you still follow what's going on,
Correct.
and it gives you the time that probably you didn't know you needed to
I tell you,
to
I
take a break and step
did.
back and say,
Absolutely.
I kind of needed this,
I needed that,
uh,
and just that
yeah,
reflection
because
time, and to rejuvenize myself, and to determine, really what's important. What is your mission? What is your desire? What is your
right,
vision?
right,
For this city, and that gave me that time that I needed, and enjoyed it, and enjoyed
yeah,
it. Just a little bit of rest and relaxation, and now I'm ready to be restored back to the work that my city needs me to do.
yes, yes, reclaim that seat,
Reclaim my
and yeah,
time.
and
Correct.
and just sometimes getting the opportunity to sit back and look at the council from our eyes. Sometimes that helps. And then when you come back, you even because you always conscious of the voters and the
Right.
citizens and their needs and their interests. But being able to step back and then look at them again after being on council and then look at it from
Hmm.
our eyes, I think was is a plus. That's why I say you can things happen for a reason.
They
And
do.
even
They
though you
do.
needed those comfort.
I needed that time. And I think one of the greater reasons is that, it's going to bring great strength back to the council with someone who has served in that capacity before. And,
Right.
I understand how council work. I understand how local government work. I still have people who call me, and I've been helping all along. People still call me just like I was still a member of council, and I directed them to see Click Fix, and directed them to city management when there were concerns or issues, and even connected them with council members who I felt would be instrumental in helping them to get a resolve for the questions that they had. So, yeah.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Oh, okay. Well, we got that little small talk out the way, but go
Okay.
ahead
Yeah.
and tell us about your platform this time coming back.
Sure. My platform has never changed because it's been a passion for me. As you know, I was a former member of the Economic Development Authority. I was appointed by former council in 2010. So you know what that council looked like in 2010. They appointed me to the Economic Development Authority, where I stayed on as a member for 6 years, and ultimately as chair for 2 of those years before I decided to run for city council in 2016. So, being that said, economic development is a priority for me because I believe it is the foundation to which our city needs to be able to build out, to be able to attract residents, to be able to even help small businesses, small women-owned businesses, and other large and medium-sized businesses that may want to come to our city. And of course, in that economic development portion is the affordable housing, which is another part of my platform, because I believe when we have enough affordable homes on this side of the Elizabeth River, people will come, because we're one of the largest employers in the Hampton Roads region, with our Norfolk Naval Shipyard, our Naval Hospital, our Rivers Casino, and even with our city government. Those are places where people look for long-term sustainable employment. And we have that right here in Portsmouth. So if people had affordable housing, they wouldn't have to travel through the tunnel and pay those high cost of tolls that are there. And then another passion string for me is education. I've always been an advocate for education, as a person who was born and raised in the city of Portsmouth and educated in four of our Portsmouth public schools. I believe that our children need this opportunity, because but for the opportunities that they receive in school to be able to advance their knowledge and advance opportunities for future career paths, they would not have the opportunity to get the resources that they need to develop. And I think our school needs the funding that's available to them, and that could be provided to be able to give that to our children, because they are our future, and we want them to have opportunities that will bring them back to home with jobs and opportunity here. And then, of course, my last platform issue is our public safety, considering our Portsmouth Police Department and our firefighters, being able to sustain them with affordable, competitive wages that will keep them there, opportunities that will give them training that will be able to provide the best services to our citizens. So those are my platform issues, and they could be expanded and sub-expanded into other opportunities. But I believe that's what's essentially needed in a council person to have a thriving city like Portsmouth.
Yes, indeed. Very important platform issues there. And you also mentioned education. And I wanted to ask you, being on the council before, like we talked, the experience of that. And I also like to shout out the Economic Development Authority. What
Yes,
a
yes,
great
you were there
preparation
too.
for anybody. I was there too for 8 years,
Yes,
and
yes.
but I didn't run for elected office, but
Okay,
that
right.
was enough for me. But anyway, but what
Sure,
a great preparation for elected
it
office,
certainly
because
was.
you get into the finances, and of course, for those who don't know, the EDA, they handle the money. They do things that
Absolutely. Do
in
things the
that
city cannot
council
do.
cannot do, or the city
Correct.
cannot do. But
Mm-hmm.
in doing deals, development deals, and things like that. But
Correct.
anyway, getting back to
Yeah.
education, being on the council before, and having a relationship or with the school board, and
Yeah.
and sometimes over the years with many other councils, it's been kind of contentious. Some of the
That's right. That's right.
and some tensions between them, and some disagreements and things like that. How important is it to you, even coming back, that the, the the relationship between these two bodies, somewhat cordial, and the communication, that's the main thing, is open, so both bodies knows exactly what the other one is doing, and so people that are watching, you know we don't see everything. Sometimes things happen, where we don't see that that shows a better relationship than what we might see in public. So
Correct.
how important
Correct.
is it to you for that relationship to be as cordial as possible, but also you have to hold each other accountable for things
Correct.
that goes on,
Sure.
because the public expect that.
Sure. I believe that it is most important that our city council members be able to have good working relationships with our school board members and our superintendent and their staff as well. The council usually appoints a liaison, a person who works on the council on behalf of the council, working with members of the school board. And I believe that I have a good working relationship with all of the school board members. I know them by name. I know their concerns. I speak to them on regular basis, even outside of public meetings, council meetings. In the community, we have some of the same passions, and that's what's important, because our children are depending on us to be the kind of leaders that they need to give them that foundation to be able to expand on their career opportunities, to be able to look fairly at budgets that provide resources for them to be able to thrive right here in our city. And when people are looking for affordable housing, that's one of the things that they consider first when they looking for housing. They look and see what the school system looks like. And so if we fail to invest in our school system, then we fail our children, we fail our city. And I believe our citizens know that I have a passion for education, and that I would be one who would be an advocate to make sure that they get the resources they need to build out their schools, to be able to fund their pay centers and the Norcom Field House and all of those things. I'm one who is not afraid to ask the hard questions when they come across the dais, for us to be engaged in it, and to be able to let the public know, because a lot of times we get information that we may not be able to per se share, that was discussed in closed sessions, but there is some information that you can ask questions that will help them to be enlightened on what direction the council may be taking. And then I have my thumb is on the pulse of my community, because they talk to me outside of council meetings. They talk to me in community settings. They talk to me
In
in
grocery
churches,
stores.
in grocery stores. Exactly. So I'm getting a earful of what our community needs, and they're comfortable coming up to me. I was canvassing in the community yesterday and had put a door knocker on somebody's door, and they didn't get to talk to me. And we were walking halfway down the block, and they was like, "Hey, come back. I need to talk to you." And so we went back and we engaged, and gave them a little bit about my platform issue, and that was in the Churchland community out in Merrifields. And so people want to know, and people want to feel like they have somebody that they can come up to and they can have a conversation with without feeling some kind of way.
Yes, boots on the ground, and that's something that's talked about nationally. But City of Portsmouth candidates always know how important it is to get the boots in the ground and go to
Correct.
those
Yeah.
communities. But
Mm-hmm.
staying with the school board issue, and I want to recognize the person's comment up here. But the city had passed putting a referendum on the ballot along this
Yes.
November with
Correct.
a 1% increase, and
Certainly.
to certainly, we're using the same words. So reading my mind, are you?
Yeah, we
Certainly,
we right here. We right here.
yes, we're right here.
Yes. Yes.
But certainly, it's going to be a tax that some citizens might agree with and some don't. But they're going to be the ultimate person that decide if they want to do that. But I guess it's arguments for both sides. We don't need any more taxes, but we need to maintain those school buildings, and needs to be. People say, well, why would it be set so long in the future? Because you want to make sure that
It's sustainable.
that that fund, right, is for that. So if it passes, and you are reelected, you will have to be dealing with that. How do you feel about? Do you feel, I know you're hearing some things from citizens,
Yeah.
since you're so approachable about,
Right.
that added tax, but it's for the future. But
It is. It is for the future, and I hear both sides, and I hear the pros and the cons on both sides. That we don't need another tax. We are already suffering with the high cost of gas and food and medications and just the cost of living. But the thing with this 1% sales tax that's going to be the referendum in November is that it's not just Portsmouth citizens who have to bear that burden. It is for anyone who visits our city, our visitors, our tourists, if they're eating in our restaurants, if they're staying in our hotels, if they're enjoying entertainment opportunities that we provide, like Sunset Thursdays or any of those venues. That 1% sales tax plays into it, so it won't be just the residents of Portsmouth. And we want our city to be an inclusive place where other people come. So I believe that it's going to help us to be able to fairly offer these opportunities to our schools without being budget time and everyone's uptight and everyone has arms like octopuses trying to
yeah,
decide where the money is going to go and who's going to get the bigger share and who's not going to get any at all. But I believe that this will be a fair way for us to offer this opportunity. As me, myself, I went to Lakeview Elementary School. That's one of those four public schools that I attended. And that wasn't yesterday. So I'll be celebrating
you
a
sure?
birthday on Thursday. So Thursday, I'll be 63, and I'm not ashamed to say that I was 63. So, from 63 back to when I attended Lakeview when I was 7, most of these schools have been around 50 plus years, and they're in need of some repair and some shape. But, we have done a good job of maintaining a lot of our schools, because some of them on the outside structure still look, like they're well kept. But inside, some of the structures inside really need repairing and replacement.
Yes,
The
yes,
new
indeed.
technology, the new ways that our students need to be able to learn. We need to incorporate that inside of those buildings so that they can have jump starts on opportunities with technology and with arts and science, STEM, those science, technology, engineering, and math, and having a technology background of electronics engineering from Norfolk State University was one of my Bachelor of Science degrees that I received. I believe that those are the kinds of opportunities that give our students the ability to earn um, great incomes in the future.
Yes, indeed. And I want to address this comment one of the viewers made. This is Gail Gail M. Gilmore, candidate for
Yes,
Chesapeake City
candidate
Council.
candidate for Chesapeake City
Yeah, and
Council. Yeah,
she was on here last week,
I
and she
saw that
just wanted to
segment.
say enjoying the program, praying for your success, Miss Lisa Lucas Burke. And
Oh,
since she put
thank
that up, that
you.
yes, indeed. Since she put that up, that brings a question to mind that I like to ask about regionalism. You know, and I think when you were on there before, you were a part of several regional boards.
Absolutely.
You know that,
Mhm.
and I just want to get your take on how important it is to continue that kind of relationship between the seven cities of Hampton Roads, because every city has its own niche, and
Right.
you know, and sometimes when it comes down to maybe a big corporation coming to the area, you have to sort of come together so you can put all
Sure.
those number population numbers together
Cost
to
sharing,
encourage.
right.
Yes,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
wherever the company lands, you know, each city could benefit as far as jobs and things like that. So, how do you feel about? Well, I know, kind of know how you feel,
You,
but you
you
know,
know how I
uh,
feel. You
let
know
the
how I
public
feel.
know how important it
Sure.
is for that kind of a relationship between the cities, and
Absolutely.
even the competition is good. Sometimes, you know, y'all
It
can have a
is.
little fun with that, but
It is.
continuing that
Exactly.
kind of relationship is very important. You know,
I think it's really healthy for us to work together as sister cities. You know, we have our Virginia Municipal League conferences that we go to annually, and we come together with all of our Virginia local government entities. And then I was a member of Virginia First Cities, which pretty much caters to our cities who
that's
could
like a
be considered.
national thing, isn't it?
Those are national boards and commissions that we engage in, and we get to talk with other cities and to see some of the struggles that they are facing, and how we could come together to lobby our legislators at the state level and the federal level to get those dollars to come back to Hampton Roads, because we're better when we're working together. So that regionalism comes into play when we're in attendance with those programs like Virginia Municipal League and the Virginia First Cities. And then we have the National League of Cities, where we come together and all of the cities across the nation come together and learn from one another and share resources that we could take back to our localities to help us to improve infrastructure and build outs for our school and housing opportunities for citizens and visitors, and even entertainment opportunities, because that's what's going to make a citizen whole, when they have someplace affordable, someplace that they can live comfortably. And whether they choosing a home in Portsmouth or Chesapeake. I think that we have to still work together, and it shouldn't be just for the mayors. As a person who has been vice mayor for 4 years of my 8-year veteran time on the Portsmouth City Council, I have formed relationship with mayors in other cities as well. So we all understand what we're up against, and we sympathize with each other when we're facing issues like right now with this flooding. It's not just happening in Portsmouth, but Norfolk and some of our other surrounding cities as well. And if we come together when we go to our Virginia municipal leagues and our National League of Cities and lobby our legislators in the federal level at Congress and in U.S. Senate offices, maybe our voices will be bigger to be able
Yes,
to
yes,
get some of those dollars back into Hampton Roads to help us to become a thriving region.
yes, indeed. And I like to always recognize when people make comments, because I ask for them to make comments. And we have a
Yes.
comment from Louis Bracy. As a matter of fact, Louis Bracy is from Portsmouth, and we
Mhm.
graduated from IC Northam together, but he lives in Maryland now and is
Okay.
very active up there in Maryland. And he's a part of
Amazing.
our evening show. On,
Yeah.
you know, we try to include the uh,
The DMV.
DMV. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, he just says taxes are always the sticking point. I believe there was more creative ways to increase city funds without raising taxes. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I guess that's true in a way, but you know, I
Yeah,
mean,
and I'm
do
glad
you have?
that, because we pivoted that to the citizens. So in November, they will be the one to ultimately make that final decision. It was a request from our school boards because they feel like that when budget time come, they don't always get the funding that they need, depending on the council that's seated at the time. because in my 8-year term, when I was on the council, I believe that there were 6 of those 8 years that our school boards received the funding that they need, and we didn't have to raise the citizens' taxes. But now that we have pivoted that referendum to our citizens in November, they get to decide whether this is going to be a tax that they're willing to take on.
Yes, indeed. And I guess your appearance here is creating people with comments, and that's a good
Okay.
thing. You
Yes, it
also have
is.
a yes.
Yeah,
I
I
also
love
agree. You
engaging with our citizens,
yeah
when it's fair and equitable, that negative content can stay somewhere underneath the earth for me. But when there are engaging conversations and comments, I'm willing to get right in there and dig in with them.
yeah, and as an elected official, you also have to realize that you know the people that voted for you or the people that didn't vote for you, because once
Right.
you're elected,
I serve
you
them
represent
all.
everybody.
I
And
absolutely do.
they had preserved the right to hold you accountable
So
for
correct.
your votes and everything, and that's why I feel like it's important that, and I've seen you do this over the 8 years. When you vote a certain way, give
You
the
explain.
audience
Yeah.
an explanation, and they might not still agree with you, but at least they
Right.
understand why you voted that way, because you might have
Correct.
had, and I think you mentioned this earlier, you might have had more information that
That they were
encouraged you
not
to vote
aware
a
to.
certain that they were not
Exactly.
aware of, and it really affected, how you voted on that thing. That's why
Yes,
the explanation is
the
so
outcome is
important.
always important, and I have been known to be a swing vote on some issues, and of course,
Oh
when you are
yeah,
a
yeah,
swing vote, you really have to explain why you went that way. And I remember doing that with the book club at one point, and the room was filled with almost 80 speakers, and we had to take a recess. And when I went out, the people thanked me for being honest about what I wanted to see and why I took the stance that I did. And they said that, I hope that you would still be engaged and come by and listen in, or take an active view on what we're seeing. And I absolutely promised them that I would.
yes. And let's talk about crime a little bit now. I
Sure.
think, it's been, and you dealt with this. I think it's sometimes unfair with some of the citizens that think the city council can stop what's happening in the streets. But
Right.
you have to understand that the voters feel like you all are in a position to do something,
Right.
and that's why you get that kind of excuse me, reaction from some people. And for the most part, the council handles that well, and they do what they
Yes.
can within their parameter. Uh,
Correct.
the crime commission has been put together, and I think, was
Right.
that done before you left? Was
Yeah,
that?
they were working on that right
Uh-huh.
when I was transitioning off of the council with the Cities United and the Crime Commission, and working together with that. I believe that there's still, I mean, it's still a very young program, and it hadn't had opportunities to reach its full potential. I think there's still opportunity for growth. But listening in with the police department's presentations that they give monthly and sometimes quarterly, that that crime is not just a targeted issue right here in the city of Portsmouth. A lot of times is beef between families or relationships. Most of it that we see, crimes and murders, are domestic for the greater part. But it is definitely something that is unconscionable, and just something that we don't like to see when it happens right here in our backyard, in restaurants or in parking lots, where people just haven't learned how to deal with conflict resolution, or finding better solutions on how they deal with situations that do not sit well with their heart, or something that causes them to be upset. And the crime that happens right here in Portsmouth is not just centralized right here in Portsmouth. It's happening across all of our Hampton Road cities, and across the nation, for a matter of fact. And I think that how we look at it, how we address it, and how we handle the outcomes of it will be important, because when people see that you're tough on crime, and that gun violence is not tolerated in our cities or in our restaurants. Maybe there's a policy where they put in place where your weapons have to be confined to your vehicle, and maybe and that's part of some security.
It's a certain
When people are
responsibility of the citizens as
right,
well. Right.
exactly. Exactly. Whether it's weapons detection or just saying that, hey, we're all here to have a good time tonight. We don't want any weapons on our premises. And if you choose to do that, we're gonna have to ask you to leave. And that would, eliminate some of those issues. I mean, you have someone driving up at the last minute with a weapon. No one can prevent that. Not the council, not our police department, not the businesses that are providing these services to our citizens and our visitors. So not to put any blame on anyone, but it just shows that we all have more work to do as far as crime is concerned for our cities.
Yes, indeed. And I was wondering about what the crime commission was doing, but just like any other citizen, sometimes I only react to what I see, and which is not always the best way to react because you never know what's going on in the background. And I
Sure.
saw at the work session last night, the crime commission has added. I always felt like some of the members on there should be uh, people that experience in that field, or you need some people that's dealing with human behavior,
Right.
on there. And I think
Yeah, you
Letitia
need some
Sessions,
psychologists, some people with some
right? So
psychology degrees, some
she,
people with some in law enforcement
right,
with
right,
backgrounds and experience, and somebody who can really get in and touch people where they are, which is a
yeah,
lot of people are hurting. They're traumatized by these acts of senseless gun violence and murders, and we just need resources to be able to help our citizens deal with the situations when they occur.
yes, indeed. And I want to go to the health department right now because I
Hmm.
don't think this comes up that much. And I sit on the advisory board for the Portsmouth Health Department, and it
Right.
comes up sometimes. And how, especially, some of I think you were there, and the health department gave a real extensive report on uh, the health of our city, and
Yes.
they gave a point where uh, certain zip codes where certain issues were health.
More prevalent. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Right.
and the problems
Exactly.
were more prevalent, and most of them were African American communities,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
and of course, throughout the state, it's proven that African Americans suffer some of these, like heart disease, diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. And that's
Stroke,
something, and
cancer. Mm-hmm.
especially the way things are happening nationally now, funds being cut and everything, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be very important for some health department to be healthy, because a lot of people now might fall into that category where they need help from them.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
how important is it to you to make sure that y'all are aware of what the health department does, and support them in any
Yeah.
way possible when they need
Right.
it?
I believe that it is very important because the health of our citizens is the foundation of who we are. If the city doesn't have residents to fund our city, then where are we as a bigger picture of local government? And I believe that with the high cost of medication and even insurance, even before you get to the medication, you have to have some type of insurance that's going to help fund that. I believe that we need to work nationally with our legislators and our congressmen and our senators, U.S. senators, to help us to find affordable ways to keep our nation healthy, to keep our localities healthy. And even if it's not with medication, then maybe we could find some healthy ways to do that through, whole foods or more vegetables and just a healthy eating
Community
lifestyle.
gardens and things
Yes,
like that.
community gardens and those things that are just going to help, carve some of those issues that we're facing. And I think if people are presented with healthier options, they will take it because people want to live and people want to be healthy. Nobody wants to be sick. And even me as a business owner right here in the city of Portsmouth, when I was shopping with my HR manager for health insurance, and I was asking them why are the rates so high for small businesses. We are already, up against many challenges as a small business and small women-owned businesses at that. And they said that the insurances were higher in certain zip codes, and the 23704 zip code where my business is located is one of those localities where the insurance offerings were high. And I thought that was discrimination. I believe that we really need to take a look at this nationally and find a way to offer affordable health insurance for our working class people and even those who are maybe on Medicaid or Medicare, because people deserve an opportunity to live, and the affordability is just what's killing our nation because people can't afford to buy their medication, they can't afford to get the insurance, and it costs to eat healthy, rather than eating cheap. So eating cheap is what's killing us as well. So those healthier options should be more affordable for people to be able to get those as well. And I think the city should remain a great partner with our health department because they have the resources. They go to the national health conferences that bring information back to our localities. And I think that's a great partnership for us to keep and to be able to share that information with our citizens as well.
Yes, indeed. So, because I being on that advisory board, I've seen things I didn't know all the things that the health department offered. So it's very
Hmm.
important. A lot of those things go under the radar, and of course
Yes.
they've had some administrative changes, a few times. So it's been a challenge for them, but they still, even short staffed, they still been putting out
Yes, they
the
do good work
services
because
that.
it's a, yeah,
Right, right. So,
professional people, right, offering a
indeed.
good
So,
service.
I just wanted to
Hmm.
bring that up. Sitting on
Sure.
that board, want to make sure that the city council is aware that
Right.
that department, might have some needs and
Hmm.
might need to be addressed from time to time.
Right. And I've
And I
had
want to
great
get in.
conversations with our health department director, the past and the current one,
Yeah,
and I believe that those are good relations. And thank you for your service, for serving on that board.
yeah. It's in my blood. I don't know what it
Yes, it
is.
is. It
I
is.
learned how to say no. I think yeah,
I
after all
so
these years, I'm sitting on 3 boards.
three
I said,
boards. Yeah,
yeah,
appreciate it. When it's
but
in your DNA, you can't help but to do, but
yeah,
to serve,
I'm
just
telling
like
you,
me.
once you start service.
Yeah,
I see a
absolutely.
question here from Louis Bracy but before I get to that question, I want to ask you this. I've been asking all the candidates and
Okay.
the non-candidates I've talked
Okay.
with, for years or over the years, locally, it hadn't been important, for people to identify their party affiliation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you run on the ballot, it's going to have an I behind the name. And the city
Right.
like Portsmouth, we pretty
Yeah.
much know who's Democrats
They know
or
who's
things
who.
like that. But you
Exactly.
don't always know.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
even more today, because uh, most people say they don't care if it's Democrat. What difference does it make if I need a pothole on my street or
Right.
uh, uh, I want to talk about my
So
taxes? But
sidewalks
in
or
the days,
lighting and
this
mhm.
lighting or some community interest, but
Yes,
and all politics are local, and
for
that's a
sure.
big statement. And where was I? Oh, you know, with the
The
national
party
climate the
affiliations.
way it
Hmm.
is now,
Yeah,
you know, for some people it
they
might
want to
be
know.
important to know if you and I'll just say it right out, if you're a Trump supporter, if you
Right.
believe in all of his policies. And it might be for some people that they need to know if you're a Democrat because that could
Correct.
sway their vetting process.
Correct.
How important
Hmm.
do you think it is nowadays to know the party affiliations, or like I said, we know that, but at least know the candidates, how they feel
How
about
they,
certain national ideologies and things like that, because
exactly.
a lot of these things are trickling down to us
They
now, like
are. And
cut
all
of
elections are
funding
part
on
of
the
local.
national level, and then the state has to adjust,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then it comes down where the city has to adjust after they have
Mm-hmm.
approved their budget. And they thought, wow, we approved
Yeah.
that budget, and now here it comes down. We're not getting this money from the state. So that's why you have
Correct.
these referendums that come up.
That's it.
So I said a
Yeah.
lot to say, but how do you feel about
I think it's real important to me because someone asked me in the last election that they because I had on a red dress one time, they didn't know
it?
if I was a Republican or a Democrat at heart. And of course
Did you say
everyone knows that
Delta?
I am the daughter of State Senator L. Louise Lucas, President pro tempore of the Virginia Senate and Chair of Finance, and she serves in the Virginia General Assembly as a strong Democrat. And that was just the way we were raised in my household. I came up learning how to advocate for issues, to participate in our NAACP, to be a voter. If you came in our house to visit us and, you were staying for a card game or for, food, are you a registered voter? Have you registered to vote? Because it's important. And I believe that some of the issues that Democrats champion and advocate for are the ones that really help the working class people, the people who need help with health insurance and our medications and for healthy living, and they need options for affordable housing, and they need people who are going to be champions for our Portsmouth public schools and our school systems in general across the state of Virginia to be able to provide the best opportunities for our children, and issues of economic development that provides affordability. And I was glad to see the city engage with a regional program, which is the RED, the Real Estate Development Academy, where they are providing opportunities for developers who may not have all of the resources, such as big developers, but they want to get their foot in the door somewhere. And a lot of times we've been left behind because no one cared. And, to see those opportunities to come online for everyone to have an opportunity. And I believe that, that process is important. So, not so much as the work we do as a council person. I don't mind being independent because I'm going to help all of our citizens. But I think that, if it were an opportunity for people to identify who they are, then people would know because all elections are local and our local politics affect how we have our partnerships and how we engage with our leaders at the state level and at the federal level. And a lot of times, they look at your local government and they see if they're going to give their dollars to someone who is in opposing view of what they're trying to support. So, I think it all ties together whether we want it to or not. But, that's just my view.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, I think it's important. Some people disagree, but especially now since we have early voting, and one of the
Yes.
the hardest things to do, and if you want to know that, just ask the candidate.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not going to get them to really sit there and tell. But like I said, we know who's Republican or Democrat here in this city.
Correct.
But you want to know a little bit more about their thinking, because with early voting, you hate to vote on the first day of early voting, and then down the road
Right.
find out,
And
oh, I didn't know he was
he was this
supporting
this type
that,
of
and
candidate.
you've already voted.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think it's important for the vetting process these days. So that's why I
Correct.
ask each candidate that comes up here, and even
Sure.
non-candidates, sitting
Right.
present city councilman. I ask that too. I think
Sure.
that should be brought out. Let
And
me
that's
bring
why I
this question up.
appreciate I
Oh, go
appreciate
ahead.
you giving a early start on some of these interviews as well, so that you can get an idea of what our candidates are presenting. And there
Yeah.
have been some other organizations who have already looked into that as well, because, like you said, September 18th, early voting begins in about 3 weeks, and the people who are going in early or on the first day need to be informed about who they have as options.
Yeah, and that brings me to, early voting, but declaring early. I mean, you must have been. I think you broke a record as far as declaring early. I mean, I think the new year came in, and you said,
Yes,
"Okay, I'm running."
I'm running. I
Yeah,
jump right in. I'm number two
but
on
you
the
knew,
ballot, number
yeah,
two, but I'm
yeah,
fighting for number one.
yes. I
Yeah,
always try to encourage the people that are going to run. At least declare it, because you have time. if you change your mind before you have to really officially be a candidate. But it gives the public a chance to really vet you and things like that,
Right.
rather than 2 days before the deadline, you gonna jump in the race and then say, "Who was that?" But anyway,
Yeah.
that's just my
Right.
opinion on that. Let me go to this
Yeah.
question by Louis Bracy,
Okay.
and of course from Portsmouth. And Lisa, what I found out, a lot of people that formerly lived in Portsmouth but lived elsewhere,
Yeah.
since I've been doing this and talking to
Mm-hmm.
people in Atlanta, they are still really concerned about. I get calls from people from Atlanta if something happens. What's going on
Right.
in Portsmouth? Because especially if it
Right.
makes the national
Yeah.
news, you
Sure,
know.
for sure. Because
So
this is home. This is home,
this
whether
is
you're still
home.
here or
It's no
not.
place like
It's
home.
home.
So Louis Bracy is one of
Yes.
those. He has a question: how would you deal with speaking the hard truth to our people, specifically self-imposed dysfunctions? And I want you to kind of include in that, if you can't answer that, the development, because the hard questions you said you might get from people that see you in the street. Why are taxes so high? Why do we have the
Right.
highest? I mean,
Right.
if they look at it and not look at the whole picture, see Virginia
Correct.
Beach is 97 cents per hundred, or
Right.
Chesapeake is 101 per hundred.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're larger cities with more development coming in. But all they see is those numbers and wonder why in Portsmouth they're so high. So development is important. And you mentioned you've been on the Economic Development Board, which is the economic engine for driving in development
Yes.
for the city. And we have some things coming up. Finally, we'll be able to develop the waterfront. But, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
And I so
come
want to be a part of that.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and so combine it. I don't know if I should combine those questions, but deal with, Lewis's question if you
Okay.
can, and then
Okay.
get into
And
the
then talk about
development
the
part and taxes that people. You heard the complaints mostly that I see
right.
about the high taxes.
Great. I mean, thank you for the question, Louis Bracy and hometown Portsmouth person. I don't have a problem speaking any kind of hard truths. You've seen it in my track record before. If you go back and look at any of the city council meetings that I was engaged in for the 8 years, I never had any issues dealing with hard questions and letting our people know the truth. I'm a transparent kind of person. So I believe in sharing information so that people can be informed about what's going on and why we have to go this way. And if it's something that with the self-imposed dysfunctions of there's going to be dysfunction in anything that you deal with, because we are not all perfect people, and our citizens elect us all for our different backgrounds and our different skill sets, and we bring something different to the table. And I think that we, as council persons, as elected officials, have to be able to share that, no matter what it looks like to our public, to be able to get our points across. So once I'm elected back to the Portsmouth City Council, I would have no problem in speaking the hard truths to our citizens. And as far as the development side, the tax side, sometimes you have to raise taxes because it's the way that we build our budgets. And at one point in the city of Portsmouth, we didn't have a lot of housing stock that helped us to build the revenue that we needed for our budgets. And we have since, redeveloped a lot of our projects into very nice home complexes for our citizens to be able to choose as opportunities. And taxes are just like air. We need them as a city, as a locality, as a local government, to be able to build a budget that helps us to be able to provide the resources for our public service, our public fire, and our police, and to be able to offer the budget funding that our schools need. So if there were no taxes, we wouldn't be able to fund a city government. And so that is a hard truth, that taxes are going to be with us always. And when we can find ways, when there are opportunities for us to cut back, like we did 2 years ago when I was on the council, we did reduce the real estate tax. But it really, generally, sometimes people don't know that you get more buck for your dollar in Portsmouth because of the housing prices that we're able to offer. You are able to get a lower cost for your home in Portsmouth than you would in Virginia Beach or Chesapeake or Suffolk. I think people need to look at the whole picture and not just the tax element of it all.
Yes, and thank you, thank you. Um, as we kind of wind down, but
Hmm.
I want to give you an opportunity to have the last word. But I do have another question.
Okay.
One of the things that disappoints me sometime every election time is the percentage of how we vote in the city of Portsmouth. And I think that's like countrywide. If you look at the last national election, 80 million people sat on the couch,
Yes,
which
and
is
that's
unthinkable.
unconscionable.
But
Yeah.
we have that same issue here, and I think other cities do. Sometimes we might get 20 to 30%, and out of 97,000 people, we got 60 some thousand people registered to vote,
Hmm.
and a lot of times we don't get half that many people to
Right.
vote. And
Yes,
I
yes,
guess the
yes.
record shows too, most of the people that do vote are the older people, and we have some of our younger people that don't see the need for voting and things like that. So if you had the
Yeah.
opportunity, and I'm sure you had the opportunity to talk to young people or young adults, I'm talking about the- all the young adults that say voting is not necessary or don't see the need to do that. The
Hmm.
people talk about how important it is to vote this midterm, but
Right.
you got to vote up and down the ballot
Up
because
and down the
the
ballot.
localities are important too. Who you
Sure.
put on the city council. What would you say if you just happen to get a group of those people that say, "Well, I'm not sure if I'll vote. I don't think I will because what will my vote do?" What would you say to try to encourage them
Hmm.
to really get out there and vote and how important their vote is and to get that percentage up because
Right.
even though when you're elected you serve all the people,
We do.
but you got 60 some thousand people registered to vote and
And stay home.
you can
Yeah.
win the election with 15,000 people,
Correct.
which that's the democratic way, and
Right.
you're going to represent everybody, but wouldn't you want to have you know you
Higher
know
percentages or
a
more
higher
people.
percentages or no
Right.
more people got out and
Right.
voted, even though you're going to do pretty much the same thing as far as representing the people, but just knowing that many people got out to vote. You know,
Yeah.
my
It
main
is.
point. But what would you say?
It is
What would you say?
disturbing. It's disturbing that people choose to stay home, and in this last election that we had just in April of this year, when we were voting yes to 10-1, people were discouraged with that. They said, "See, now they feel like they have." Reason to say that I went out and I voted and it was still overturned, but I believe that,
Yeah.
for that issue, that's a horse of a different color, and we know what all that engage
Right.
meant was with. But I would tell citizens, they say that, I'm not really political. I don't want to get involved. And I say, well, are you concerned about the cost of your groceries in the city? Are you concerned about the kind of entertainment that comes here, like our casino and now our opportunity to build out our waterfront? Are you concerned about those things? Because people don't see those as political. Then I tell them, then if you want somebody to be a voice that represents your concern, when we go into the table, you have someone there to advocate for your issues and someone who is going to be a voice for your matters at hand. Then you should vote. You should provide that opportunity, because if you don't vote, don't complain. And when you vote, that gives you a pass into being able to be engaged in the whole process. Now, we don't expect our citizens to attend every city council meeting or to even look at them online, because that's why they elected us to do that. But when you vote, you actually give yourself someone that you're choosing to be your go-to person, someone that you can just text when you have a concern, or someone you can call and leave a message, and they will get back with you on that. So if you believe that voting provides you that access, I'm telling you that it does. And I would try to encourage more people on ways to vote, not per se with issues, but things that are important to them, like their local income, their cost of living increases, having places to be able to work right here in our city, and even having people who are comfortable enough to advocate with our legislators at the Virginia General Assembly level. I believe I have a good relationship with Republicans and Democrats in the state legislature because they have seen me in action and they have appointed me to some of those state boards and commissions. So having someone not just here locally, but someone who can go and advocate to our federal legislators. Bobby Scott is our third congressional congressman, and even our U.S. senators, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, know me by name. And that's important to have someone who you can relate to, someone you can go and ask a question for, someone you can refer someone to when they're having issues with any other matters that may affect them in their daily living.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was reading a comment,
Okay.
and
A
I'll
comment. Yeah.
put this up
Mhm.
there. And
Okay.
my last question for you was going to be, give you an opportunity to tell the people why they should vote for you as you seek to reclaim
Yeah.
your seat on council.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you're not officially an incumbent because of the gap, but
Yes.
you do have a 8-year record that
Correct.
people really want to bet. That's one of the advantages that incumbents
Sure.
have. It's an advantage for
Absolutely.
the people that's voting. They do
Right.
have a record of how they voted and things that were said and how they were involved with communities and things like that.
Correct.
But
For
do you,
sure.
and you kind of in that last talk, you kind of covered that, but if anything else you'd like to add, but I'm looking at
Yeah.
this comment. This is from the Jim Nugget. I believe that's Gail Gilmore. She
Okay.
said, I don't think people know that their voice is their vote. And yes, if they don't vote, they shouldn't complain. I think that's
Correct.
her
That's it. We
comment
got
on that.
thumbs up on that one. I
Yeah,
like
being a
that. Yeah.
fellow city council candidate over in
Candidate,
Chesapeake,
correct. And I
I think
hope that
she
we get
believes.
an opportunity to serve together in our
Yes, indeed.
future. Yes, yes.
So it's
Well,
it. Mm,
for me for to close out, I mean, we covered a lot, and I thank you for leading this conversation. But for me, for 8 years, I served on Portsmouth City Council, which included 4 years vice mayor, and then prior to that, chair of the Economic Development Authority. So the thing about me is that public work taught me something very simple, that progress isn't just built on catchy slogans or broken promises, but rather collaboration and disciplined planning, measurable goals, and a courage to make hard calls and hard decisions when our city needed the most. And everyone knows that I'm that person who will be transparent parent enough to give them that opportunity. I'm running to return to the city council because Portsmouth next chapter deserves exactly that. All of the things that I have been able to offer as a proven leader, as someone who advocates for their concerns, for their school issues, for public affordable housing, for build outs that include developers that deserve a seat at the table. And proven experience is should be paired with someone who is a forward thinking person, someone who can collaborate with other members, not just on the council, but like I said, with our school boards, our state government, state and our federal government. And I believe that I'm the person that brings all of that to the table, being a fair person, one who has been elected before. And people might not realize this, that we have 5 candidates. 3 are incumbents and 2 are former members of the Portsmouth City Council. So that is some strong leadership that's vying for 3 seats. But this, what I bring specific to the table is I'm the only woman that's running in this race. And if I'm elected this cycle, when I'm elected this cycle, this will be the first time in the history of Portsmouth that there will be 3 women serving on the Portsmouth City Council. And that brings some heavy perspective into view all at once. And some people even ask me the question, are you going to be able to work with the current mayor because you ran for mayor? Well, he did at one point too. our mayor, who is the current mayor, ran for mayor at one time too and didn't win, and then ran for council and came back on and had to work with John Rowe as the mayor. I could work with anyone. I have good relationships. That running for mayor was water under the bridge for me. I'm ready to move on into a new day, into a journey that's going to lead our city into the best opportunity that we can have with the build out of our waterfront. And I believe that I'm one of the best candidates to serve in the capacity on the Portsmouth City Council. So I appreciate your early vote by September 18th or your general election vote by November 3rd. Lisa Lucas Burke for Portsmouth City Council, reclaiming my time.
Yes, indeed. And Lisa Lucas Burke, I really thank you for coming on and for being transparent with your answers to the questions, even the questions that were and statements that were made by. I want to thank our viewers for participating in this particular program. And as you go forward and doing a lot of these platforms and forums and things like that, I wish you luck. And I want to tell all the viewers out there and voters to make sure you vet the candidates, to make sure you're aware of what's going on, of the issues, you know, and keep up as you early vote if you feel comfortable early voting. If not, make sure you take your time and vet the candidates and make sure you make an informed decision.
Yes, for sure.
All right. And I appreciate everybody watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, please, and support this channel as we move forward. And thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time. I think we have a school board candidate coming on tomorrow evening, which is Denzel Glover. So, and also I like to put the appeal out there. If any other candidates like to come on, just make sure you contact me, and we will schedule you to come on and have a conversation. This is for the voters and the viewers out there to help them vet you properly.
Right.
And make sure that you get out to vote and get that percentage up. We need that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And Lisa, have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You as well. Goodbye, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Be our guest.